Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sankirtan ki. Gaur Premanande. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajanulambita Bhujo Panakavadato Sankirtanayeka Pitaro Amalaya Daksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Bodhidai Pushpavanto Chitro Sandho Tamonuno Vandeham Sri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sago Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Nostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Anamami Haripre Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. Let me get rid of this and this. So nice to be with all of you. Oh, hello. And nice day today. Thank you. So I'm going to speak a little today from verses from the Bhagavad. And these are verses that are cited in my book, but I
highlight them because it's been said by some devotees that they represent the three verses that best describe the beauty of the form of Krishna in the Bhagavatam. And they come in different sections of the text, beginning in his first in his Sesh Kumar Leela, the end of his childhood, and the second at the dawning of his adolescence, and the third at the point where his adolescence has become mature. There are different opinions as to which is more excellent than the other. But they're all entwined to some extent with the Sakiras, so they're pertinent to their overall discussion about fraternal love, as it, given that we're speaking about my recent publication, Circle of Friends, and so I don't know if we'll get through them all, but we'll start. I'm going to start with the first, which is something it's a verse I cited earlier in our talks in London. The fraternal love, or Sakira's center, aesthetic center, emotional center of the Bhagavatam, begins at the last third of the 11th chapter of the 10th canto. And this is when Krishna and Ram and the inhabitants of Vrindavan have crossed the Jamuna and become inhabitants of Vrindavan. And Mahavan on the other side, from Mahavan Gokul across, and landing in Vrindavan. This coincides, this journey, with the falling of the twin Arjun trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, which was preceded by a number of other extraordinary events, all of which proved to be, or appear to have been threatening to the child and the community, but somehow or other they were remedied. Whether the child himself had anything to do with that, it wasn't entirely clear. After all, the child placed down underneath the cart to get out of the shade, or get in the shade, and really an infant, and he kicked the wheel and the whole cart crashed and turned over. It wasn't clear that Krishna had actually done that, right? Or that how Putana had died, and so on and so forth. Trinavarta, the whirlwind, and got caught up in a tornado, and somehow or other he landed safely, and so forth. So, and the felling of the twin Arjun trees. Sure, some of his friends were present, and they testified to the fact that he had wedged the mortar that he was tied to between the trees and pulled him over. But tales like this from young boys had to be taken with a grain of salt, right? So the elders thought. But enough is enough was more or less the conclusion of Upananda, the eldest of the Nanda brothers, Upananda, Nanda, Sunanda, and so on, 5 of them. Krishna's father and his uncles. Upananda was the eldest, and he was the heir to the throne. But the first act that he performed as the king was to give the kingdom over to Nanda Maharaj, the middle brother, because of his wonderful qualities. And of course, everyone was in agreement. But being an elder, he certainly had input into the community, and he sat around the fire and passed a stick or whatever, and made policy. So he insisted we should move from here. It's become dangerous. And for that matter, there are greener grasses on the other side of the Jamuna. And Govardhan Mountain is there. It's a nice facility for our animals. We are cow people. This is our livelihood. And so they packed up their camp and turned their wagons into boats and floated across the Jamuna, right? Mm. So this is when they arrive there, this is the last part. Now Krishna, at this point, has entered into the final division, Shesh, remaining division of his childhood. And at this time, he's become a calf herder. Not a cow herder, but a calf herder. He's able to go out with the calves at some distance with some young boys of his age from home and return, but not staying and come home for lunch, something like that. But it is at this point, the Seish Kumar Leela, where the Sakyaras now starts to manifest in the Prakat Leela. Now the center of Krishna's affection is moving from his parents and elders, nursemaids, and so forth, to his friends. So there's some tension now between Vatsalya and Sakya. As I said before, there's Rupa Goswami gives an analysis, of course, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he explains it appears to be a hierarchy from Shanta Rasa to Madhurya Rasa. Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Of course, it is a hierarchy. From an objective point of view, one can make a case that each successively of these rasas contains a little something more than the previous, what the previous contained and something more. It's not that all of Shantaras is in Dasiras, so that anybody in Dasiras can also experience Shantaras. It's not like that. Everybody in Sakyaras can just turn into Dasiras at any time. Goswami has given an example to help us understand it. He cited the example of elements. Umirapo Nalovayu, Kamano, subtle elements, the gross elements. They have earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? So in ether there is sound, right? Go down. In ether, in air there is sound and touch, and in fire there is sound, touch, and sight, right? And then we come to water. Taste is included. Taste, water, and earth. Smell, right. So that means, but it doesn't mean that if you're holding earth, you're also holding water and fire and so forth. But some aspects of the previous, of the other rasas are also included, but something more. So they are something unto themselves, each of these stahibhavs, these dominant, self-defining, trans-psychological emotions, centered as they are, which makes them trans-psychological on Krishna. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti, Ruchate. This is Bhakti, right? That means that our identity, materially speaking, largely arises from our contact via the senses with sense objects, from which impressions are relayed to the mind, which is like the sixth sense, makes all the others work, so to speak. If your mind is lined up with the sense and the sense is lined up with the object, then you'll experience it. Otherwise, you could come into a room like this and hear everything I say, and then afterwards, someone will say, "Did you hear him say that?" And you say, "No, I didn't hear that," because your mind was somewhere else. Try to stop that, but it happens, right? So the mind is central, and the mind receives impressions, and then it makes determinations, right? I like this, I don't like that. This is good, this is bad, this is happy, this is sad. Sankalpa, vikalpa. So these determinations, if you think about it, they end up being our identity in a sense. We identify a person with, oh, I know Swami, he does this. He writes books, or he likes dahi. And, what would be the case, right? Our likes and dislikes, in a sense, is our identity. Our sense of what is ours, what is mine, and an I arises out of that. As I say, of course, Nothing is ours. So the I that arises out of sense of mind, which is false, is as false as the my. A sense of being derived from having, when you really have nothing that you can keep, is a very vacuous sense of I. This I is an abhas, a shadow of a person. As I said the other day, someone asked me that, Maharaj, that Krishna is a person, we're supposed to worship him like a person, but he doesn't like, he doesn't talk to us. How do and I know he's God and everything, but I mean, how do we really relate with him as a person? I said, well, first you have to become a person. Now you're only a shadow of a person. You become a real person. This personality is here today. It's gone tomorrow. His is enduring. So if you want to meet him, you have to meet him on the platform of eternity. Right? You are a unit of sat, enduring reality. Ananda, but now we're covered by the mountain of ignorance. The spark of the fire of the Godhead is lost in the smoke. Smoke is not part of fire, but it cannot exist independently of questions, like a Shakti, the Maya Shakti. The spark is the self, and Krishna is the fire, and the heat and light. That means Sambit, Ladini, Sambit, light, knowledge. Light is a symbol of knowledge, The light bulb goes off in your head. Light, Sambit, and Ladini, feeling, heat, light and heat. This is internal. The goings on in the fire. We give an example the other day. It's common and useful to sometimes think of the sun as God. It's a metaphor for God, because when the sun comes up, our day starts. We're so dependent upon it for food, for rain, vegetation, for a happy mind. Like sun came out today. Everybody's on the boardwalk there. It's crowded and brightened. Let us go out, right? So in so many ways, we're dependent upon the sun, and we're dependent on God. So we keep track of where the sun is throughout the day. This is a way of, in a simple sense, thinking about God. But the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they have had a good sangha, good association. So by the power of that association, they have gained adhikar, or eligibility, to think about God in another way. And if we were to look at the example of the sun, how would they think about it? They would think, what's going on in those nuclear explosions inside the sun? Fascinating. Now, this common person is not going to think about that, right? And so the common person is not going to think about what we're talking about tonight, Leela. Or to speak of the Braja Leela, this human-like, it's aprakrita. At least the Vaikuntha Leela is at Hoksaja. It's overtly transcendental. So if you meet someone with four arms, you're going to pay attention. Tell others about that. But a two-armed guy, then everybody's got two arms. So aprakrita, it looks like the material life, but it's the antithesis. We say Krishna is human-like, so both words are equally important. He's human-like, which means he's very different from humanity at the same time. Humans are like God also, but the other way around as well. Leela, of course, is in these days I've cited what I think is a very apt definition of revered Sridhar Swami of yore, Bhagavatam commentator, so dear to the Gaudiyas. He said that Leela is the play of consciousness rendered into a theatrical performance. That's a really wild explanation of consciousness at the same time, in a world today where consciousness is an interesting topic in the community of thinkers, philosophers, and so on and so forth. It should be at all times, right? As I say, what's out there and who's asking the question. That's what it's all about. Right? The experiencer and the experienced. So we're not talking about something that's outdated here. We're talking about a way that people need to catch up to. Let's say Back to the Future, something like that. How these Goswamis thought about consciousness, what they knew about that. If we say it is sat, which means it's real, it means it's not here today and gone tomorrow, so it endures. The more a thing endures, the more credibility we'll give to it. Antiques, for example. I've given an example of what we experience in the waking state, we'll give more credibility to than the dream state, because it endures long. But nothing in this world that we have is really ours. It endures, it's here today, and it's gone tomorrow. So then it's all asat. Yes, Maya Shakti is there, but the manifestations of the Shakti, those potentialities, if you will, from a superposition that become material reality, the what is it called? The crashing of the wave function. What is it called? The collapse of the wave. All those things that can't in and of themselves cause the crash or collapse because they come out of it. Are here today and gone tomorrow. But who's doing the collapsing? That is enduring. The world is moving around and around us. Right? So, sat, a unit of enduring existence. And that sat is cognizant. As I often say, there can be an existence that's not cognizant, but there cannot be a cognizant that doesn't exist. So sat follows chit in a sense. Chit does not necessarily derive from sat, but sat derives from chit. Follow me? If there's a knowing exist, you can't know and not exist. You could exist and not know. Now, take it further, of course. There could be a knowing existence, but it would not necessarily love. So love does not derive from sat and chit. But if there's a loving existence, it has to be a knowing existence as well. So chit and sat derive from ananda. So when we talk about the drama, theatrical performance of the play of consciousness rendered into a theatrical performance, in a full measure, you're talking about the Braj Leela, right? And I mean, in another sense, human life is a drama, right? We get too much of it sometimes. So it's a full-on drama. You know, it has parallels to human life. It's such a high thing, but it parallels with our common experience. So it becomes very readily understandable, which is a little help from sadhu sangha. Look at the beauty of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in this regard. When we engage in Leela narrative, we tell the story of Krishna's childhood. Here we're talking something about his Seish Kumar Leela. He's just become a calf herder, right? And we speak about it, and certain parts of it will very much resonate with our humanity. Because we'll know, I know what that's like. Yes, I was a child. I did that. Yes, if I'm playing with my friends as a young boy and the parents call me to come home for lunch, I don't want to come home. That Vatsali is causing my sakya to contract. We'll smile, we'll understand. We can bond emotionally with the entirety of the human-like Leela of Krishna. Follow me? Now we're bonding emotionally in a material sense, but our material emotions are really, driving our actions. They should be harnessed by reason, and of course, by really good reason. We'll bring our reason in connection with revelation and spiritualize it and so forth. Well, this is the way to enter into the Leela. But long before entering into the Leela, even life of sadhana, if you understand a little bit about Krishna Leela and hear the katha, then you bond emotionally with the human-like Leelas of Krishna. His romanticism, you know what it's like. You've done that. You might be in the midst of it. You go, yeah, it's a problem, or yeah, it's very infatuating, and so on and so forth. Right? We hear Krishna's childhood interaction with his parents. Well, we've all been children, and most of us have been parents too. So there's a very beautiful thing. In other words, let's take Christianity. Well, it's not a bad thing; it's a good thing, but it doesn't have doesn't afford us the same potential to bond emotionally with God the Father or with Jesus. We bond with Him kind of maybe guilt. I know there was a movie. What was that movie about? Passion of the Christ. It was the Mel Gibson movie, and he was like trying to guilt the whole world into like, you did this to him. You should feel guilty. Connect with him on that level, and it'll change your life. Well, you gotta, if it works, okay. But I mean, the beauty of Krishna Lila, this particular face of the Godhead, this human-like face, is we can bond with all of his Leelas. We can make a connection with him, right? It may be a little superficial based on our human emotions, but any likeness for Krishna, we develop a samskar for him. This will, when we then understand the philosophy and good association and good time and this life or our next and so forth, there'll be some of the favorable winds there, right? Just like you talk with okay, let's say if you are from India, and from your childhood you learned about Mahabharata and Ramayana and maybe Bhagavad Leelas and so forth, then you can weep. You can weep on hearing the Mahabharata. In another country, in Britain, there might be some, I don't know who the heroes are, so kids grow up with or what. But other movies will make you, weeping is ordinary. I mean, it's not that every Indian that weeps during the recitation of the Ramayana has bhava. These are not sattvika bhavas that they're experiencing, but they have a certain bond. Like you take the people of Bengal. People of Bengal, they have a bond with the hero of Bengal. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's no greater personality in the history of Bengal than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have a natural bond for him. They may not understand any of the theology and philosophy, but they have that. That's very valuable. We converts, we get all the philosophy and so forth, but we think, is he really a person? Like that guy asked me. See, like I was young, and like in the United States, and a person like Bobby Kennedy was like such a virtuous person in the realm of politics and cared for the poor and so forth. And so many of these sayings that he would come out with just spontaneously, just cause you to feel like, yes, we should rise to the occasion. We should be noble people and do good for others and so forth. So you get like the bond. So you can hear the story of Bobby Kennedy's assassination and weep, right? It's similar, but the difference is, of course, that's the beauty of Bharat. That it's just another place on earth, that's true, but it's the place where the fullest form of the Godhead is chosen to appear. He has to pick out somewhere. People say, well, why India? No, why not? Why? And it's the planet we're on. He came to the planet. God appears on the planet over and over again. The concept is called avatar. Avatara. So from crossing Tara from up to down. Within the framework of our experience, time and space, appearing within that framework to take us out. This is the principle of avatar. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, speaking on this in his Gita commentary, Krishna says what he says, Paritranaya sadhanam vinasjayata duskita dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Sambhavami, I avatar, I manifest, yuge yuge, over and over again. He said, Bhaktivinoda says, and not only in India, in other cultures also, Shaktivesh and so forth. Obviously, he was thinking about Christianity, maybe Muhammad, Islam, and so forth. The faces of God, as Bhagavatam says, are how many? Asankhya. Asankhya. No samkhya, no counting. Countless. Countless faces of God. Of course, to meet him face to face, you need an ego-effacing tradition. That conventional ego, that shadow of a personality, that has to be deconstructed, right? That the self can come out and its blueprint can start to manifest. How Bhagavan wants to accept service anew and taste rasa anew. Newness within eternity. How can it be? Because Krishna is newness itself. If you have eternal newness, then it will always be full and always increasing and always room for more. That's where we come in. Oh, I drifted. What was the point there? Yeah, we'll get to that, but that's it.
Well, that's what I say, because I'm bursting to ask.
All right, I'll give it
a bit premature, I know.
Intermission.
But when you mentioned Passion of Christ,
yeah,
and I saw that film, and it was horrible. And but you know, I didn't feel guilty.
Well,
no, I thought perhaps the people doing it were guilty ones. But what really stood out for me was his tolerance. That's more tolerant than a tree, you might say.
Yeah.
And also, it reminds me of Haridas Thakur, who was beaten just as badly, almost to the point of death.
Prince of Peace, Ki Jai. Jesus of Nazareth,
so
Ki Jai.
Maybe towards the end or sometime this thing.
Yes, many good things to say about the Jesus, no doubt. Still, he says particular face of God. This is our faces are asankhya. You can meet the face by an ego-effacing tradition that declares a war on this narrow-minded, conventional ego, sense of self, the sense of I, derived from the false sense of mine. As that is deconstructed in the context of bhakti, then the blueprint of the self and how Krishna will accept service. He's a rasika, so he wants to taste. Yes, you can say, well, there's only 5 primary rasas, but everybody in every rasa, every cowherd, every gopa in Vrindavan is different than the other, and they're all fully in Sakya rasas. Some like mangoes, some like bananas. And what are these sarups? These are extensions of the very form of Bhagavan, to which he extends his senses and tastes rasa, unlimited variety. And we get to be, this is our purpose. This is actually our dharma. And we have to be touched by this particular idea. And we be touched by the Jesus idea, and you can go to that Vaikuntha where there are loka, where there are archangels, and instead of Gandharvas or whatever. So, with the airplanes, many faces of God, all good. But and transcendence, of course, is variegated. Different degrees of penetration into them. Our argument is that Krishna's two Bhagavans. This is the fountainhead. It's funny because you'd think, well, the source of all divinity must be all powerful. And in the Hindu pantheon, we've got so many gods and goddesses. They've got carriers, like riding on an elephant, riding on a swan, flying on a swan, lion, tiger, Durga, so many. They have weapons and so forth. And Krishna, in Vrindavan, he doesn't have a carrier. He is carrying Sridham on his shoulders. After losing in a wrestling match. Right? He has no weapon. he carries a flute, right? So how can he be all powerful? He's only playing games. I'll tell you a game. Games, when it comes to Poganda, we're still talking about the end of Krishna's Kumara Lila, but just let me skip ahead a moment for Poganda, because as he moves into boyhood, then intelligence starts to manifest more and more creative, inventive games, competitions. So they're inventing games on the spot. A lot of the games have to do with balls, usually which fruits take the place. Small, round amalaki and larger fruits and so forth for different games. Amongst the games involving balls, Balaram is the best. But Krishna is a little more dexterous and faster. Speed amongst cowherds is thought to be the greatest virtue amongst these cowherd boys. So they invented a game. What was the game? The game was that you take these balls, gather as many as you can, and you throw them at other boys. Whoever gets hit by a ball is out. Whoever left standing at the end is the winner. This is how they're playing with Bhagavan. So what happened was that four or so boys got together and said, let's team up and take Krishna out. Right? So we'll hide behind a banyan tree. The other guys try to herd him in this direction. And then when he gets to the tree, we'll pop out and pulverize him with the balls. So they did, right? And Krishna called foul. He said, it's a foul. It's a foul. It's cheating. I'm the son of the king here. You can't do that to me. Oh, then they became outraged. You think you're better than us? Is that what you think? Ooh. Balaram was asked to be the referee. What should be done? He's agreeing with them. This is Sakyarasa. It's centered on equality. Equality. Sometimes they serve Krishna. Sometimes Krishna serves them. No difference, right? What names they address him by, both. What names they called him at this time, right? Unmentionable. This is their kirtan, their favorite names of Krishna. So then it was decided what would be done with him for his vow of claiming that he should be given special treatment. So Balaram said, tie him to the tree. Tie him to the banyan tree. Tied him to the banyan tree and went on with the game. And Krishna was weeping and weeping and weeping. Now you tell me, why was he weeping? Why was he weeping? He was weeping because now he realized Sakyarasa. Understand? I'm equal. I'm an equal. He realized the beauty of that. So charming. Display. So in this face of God. To efface the ego is only a step, a small step. It's a big step, but it's like a step from negative numbers to zero. It's a big step, but we want to go to the positive numbers, up to 108. We enter into this division, this realm of transcendence, where Krishna is crying. You realize I'm an equal. His only weapon is a flute. He's only playing. So how can he be the fountain, the source of all divinity? He doesn't look very powerful. He looks weak. We go to his romantic leelas, he will look even weaker. So how can we understand? This is the way, because to play requires power. So you're playing, you came from Finland. You're playing, you came from Finland also, right? And you came from Bulgaria. Right? You live here. You had to spend a lot of money so we could all play here. And you had to have money, which is power, come here. And you had to have time off from your work also. That's power, right? So it takes power to play. And therefore, he who is only playing is all powerful. This is the idea. And the very thing that would cause us overtly to think he could not be the source of everything. He's just a cowherd boy. And what that means, we don't, from the West, we don't really have the full experience what it means to be a cowherd boy. In India, the cowherds, they're like, I mean, like hillbillies or something, you know, country bumpkins or something, you know, but they don't have any education. They don't. They have their own habits and so forth that are different than sophisticated people in the metropolitan area and so forth. And they're taking care of cows. And as beautiful as cows are, they take a lot of cleaning. It never ends. You got to clean them before milking, and then clean up after they're milking, and throughout the day, and then clean them again to milk them, and then clean them up. It's like samsara, just keeps going round and round and round. No time, no time. Good engagement. But the cows are, you know, they're messy. Of course, the cow run is virtuous and helpful for human society in all respects. But anyway, the cowherd people are not sophisticated. So the God of gods, right? Upendra or Govinda, God of gods, will appear in this sector of the society. You see, thinking people in Hinduism have a hard time with that. I mean, they don't, because now it's centuries later and such a thing has been established by sadhus who help us to understand the principle and so forth. For the average person, cowherd boy is the God of gods. So, yes, and this is one way of understanding that, how he is depicted, only playing. He has nothing to accomplish. Therefore, he must be full and complete, and his movement must be arising not out of sense of need, but out of a sense of fullness. Therefore, he's depicted as, there, the land is depicted as, there the walking is dancing, there the talking is song. And Jiva Goswami just was not satisfied with that statement from the Brahma Samhita. He says it just doesn't do justice to the nature of that plane, which transcends, of course, thought and word. He tried to extend it with word. In the sutras of Vyasa, it says, what is that sutra? 115. It says, anyway, from where the mind going returns, from where words going returns. Shankar interprets it, therefore, silence. Words cannot take you there. Words cannot describe it. Words cannot describe it. What is the Atma? We could talk about it, we could analyze it, but what it actually is, what Brahman is, words fail. Mind, thought fails. So, I don't know why he went on talking. He should have sat down, according to his own philosophy, and been silent. When we interpret it a little differently, we say that ultimate reality is beyond word and thought. Therefore, you cannot say enough about it. You can never tire of speaking about it, and you will never be able to adequately describe it. But such words have value, right? So we have a long commentarial history and so forth, retelling the stories and so forth. So that playing there, to enter there, this is our ideal. And this is the full face of Lila. This is where Ananda is fully manifest. Ananda is not manifest fully by any measure in Brahman. There, the Swarup Shakti is unmanifest. That face of the Godhead is Sat, existence. And it's cognizant, self-cognizant. I am. I am. And the Ananda is, well, I'm not suffering in samsara anymore, it's a big relief. We go to Vaikuntha, from there, the Swarup Shakti now here is manifest. We have Lakshmi and Narayan. But Lakshmi is not Radha and Narayan is not Krishna. Right? Krishna is Narayan, but Narayan is not Krishna. This is our teaching. So in Vrindavan we have Radha and Krishna. There now is a full face, Hladini Shakti of the Swarup Shakti, Srimati Radhika. And it is this Swarup Shakti that is making Bhagwan move. Brahman can't move because he's everywhere, but Krishna is dancing. This is the power of bhakti, the efficacy of bhakti. Right? So there, comparatively, in Vaikuntha, then, it is prominent, knowing there's a significant other, and there's some ananda in loving him at a distance. There's a kind of prema there, reverential prema. But the term prema that's used by the Gaudiyas, which they identify as their goal, prema prayojam. This is the prema as it plays out in human life, as it looks, with the measure of the intensity that friendly love has, with the measure of the intensity that parental love has, the measure of the intensity that romantic love has, all of which transcend the measure of intensity that you can find in reverential love, which keeps some distance between the object of love, of worship, and the worshiper, where worship turns into love. In love, there is no other. There is no other. Two become one in a dynamic sense. You and I become we, right? So in Vrindavan, then, the Ananda, which is again, Sat and Chit derived from Ananda, right? There, Ananda is fully on display. And see how Chit and Sat, while deriving from it, are not very prominent. The villagers, they don't know the Upanishads, right? They don't even know Krishna's God. Their existence, their realm, it's not like Vaikuntha. Not everywhere like Brahman. Like, where is that place? Out back somewhere, some little small rural place. What are the flowers? Let's come to that. And now is a description of Krishna. And to get to these verses, right? Description of Krishna. In his Seish Kumar Lila, he became a calf herder. This is when he slayed Vatsasur and Bakasur. What is the difference between slaying Bakasur and Vatsasur and the way in which he dealt with Putana, Trinavarta, Sakatasur, who I mentioned earlier, where it wasn't clear that Krishna dealt with them. Why? Because his heroism, which is an udipana for Sakyabhav, catalyst for bringing the stai of Sakyabhav to the surface. And it doesn't have the same role. Heroism is one of his qualities for Vatsalyabhav, where the child Krishna is the center. But amongst boys, then Krishna's heroism, this is exciting. Right? They all think they could have done it, but Krishna did it. Excellent, excellent, my friend. Good work. So this slaying of Bakasura in particular, this is the way it's described. It's like in no uncertain terms, it was clear to all the boys that Krishna performed a heroic deed. Goodness. So this is bringing out their for Sakyabhava. And then they're going to go home and talk about it. Right? Nobody's going to believe him amongst the elders. There was a big duck tried to bite Krishna and so on and so forth. These boys are full of stories and so forth. Right? That heroism will not play out as an Udipana for the Vatsalya Bhava. If they actually heard about it, it would be a problem, right? For the boys, that they're never worried that Krishna is going to be defeated. For the most part. So from there, of course, the Brahma Mohan Leela starts in the 12th chapter of the 10th canto. And Krishna's a calf herder. And so in this Leela, Brahma has come in and learned what it means to be a friend. He was told at the birth of the world, of the universe, when he took initiation from Krishna, when Krishna appeared to him and gave him the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam, Krishna extended to him the prospect of Sakyabhav. Sakya, Sakyori, Brahma said, you befriended me like a friend. You had 4 arms, and then you turned into a 2-armed form. With the 2 hands, you reached out and clasped my hand and said that you loved me. Very intimately stated in the Bhagavatam, so many words. And therefore, I want to have a relationship with you in friendship. So be it, Krishna said. Let it be, let it be. Yes, that is your destiny. Now, take these verses, which are all about Raga Bhakti, so they're obviously not spoken by Narayan, and try to figure them out. I've got to go. And he left Brahma with that. Half of his lifetime, it's a long time, thinking about that Siksha. Meanwhile, he's practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, and then, right, Krishna brings him into Vrindavan. Now he wants to acquaint him with the Vishaya Lambana, the Ashraya Lambana of Sakyabhav, Gopal Krishna. Not like this, giving mantras, but like this, holding rice and fruit in a hand and putting it in the mouth of his friend, only to have a friend take something from his mouth and put it in Krishna's mouth. What do you think? Taste it. These coward boys, they have more than one tongue. Krishna's tongue is their other tongue. If they taste something very good, now the other tongue has some. This is their intimacy. This is pranay. They don't feel any difference between one another. You get a little bit of experience of that if you're walking on the street with someone you love and you bump into one and they don't think it, but if somebody else bumps into you, you go ahead. Excuse me. So this kind of bond, right, is essential to Sakyabhav and mamata, minus to all the praying. So Brahma saw the cowherd boys who were the embodiments of Sakyabhav, that he would attain a status like this. He saw their object of love, Gopal Krishna, their anubhavs, how they moved about and what they did and so on. So their the Udipana bhavs were Sakyaras, that were part of the paraphernalia and so forth and so on. And of course, what he saw, as I'm describing, is extraordinary sweetness, intimacy, mind-boggling intimacy with the Absolute, who came to him previously, and he had 4 arms, and he turned into a 2-armed form. And he thought, well, this Krishna is an avatar of Narayan. Narayan is God. Now he's finding out, actually Narayan is the avatar of Krishna. Krishna's the source. He's learning this in 2 ways. He's seeing the sweetness, the measure of the love, and how it exceeds the love in Aishvarya in Vaikuntha. And he's thinking, and of course, then he sees Krishna shows a majesty by showing him that Narayans come from him virtually. Right? This is Brahma has stolen the cowherd boys and the calves. Krishna expands into them, shows himself to be all those calves and cows to be mansions of himself and worlds coming from and so forth. This is the height of Aishvarya. And so the height of Madhurya. These 2 things and the height of mercy are what causes Rupa Goswami to determine that among the 3 abodes in Goloka. Dwarka is perfect, Mathura is more perfect, and Vrindavan is most perfect. Because the full pleasure, full display of Aishwarya is there, more than Vaikuntha in such instances. And the full display of Madhurya. Indeed, the Madhurya is the Aishwarya. That, oh my God, you could associate with him like that. And we'll faint to think. We'll faint. Once we asked Prabhupada, who had a private conversation with Sridhar Maharaj, what were you talking about? He said, if I told you, you would faint. Such higher topics there. So Brahma comes out of all of this, and now his whole sadhana, which he thought he'd figured it all out, he's looking at it again from now he's got new insight. Goodness. This is the new devotees think they figured it all out. They're the only devotee and everybody else has got a problem. So go the other way around. It has to reverse. Right? Look at the progress. So Brahma says what? After all this display of that definitively it's convincing, compelling, Krishna's Swami Bhagavan. This is the narrative, the Leela narrative, where this line of the Bhagavatam, Krishna's two Bhagavan Swayam, is played out in a way that we can practically more readily understand it. So now Brahma is going to continue his bhajan, and he's going to stand on the ground of this tattva, Krishna's two Bhagavan Swayam. He knows Krishna is the source of Narayan. What does that mean? He knows, because now he's thought about it. If Krishna comes from Narayan and then enfolds back into him after the avatar lila is over, then along with that will go Sakirasa. Along with that would go Vatsalya Rasa. Along with that, Madhurya Rasa would disappear. Because in Vaikuntha, Narayan doesn't have a father and mother. Narayan doesn't have buddies to pal around with and wrestle with and so forth. There it's reverential. There's Dasya Bhakti, Shanta Bhakti. So unless Narayan comes from Krishna, and therefore Krishna has his own abode, how can I eternally experience this Sakya Bhav or Madhurya Bhav? You understand? I'll explain it to you briefly in another way. In Gopal Champu, in the first canto, it's not Gopal Champu, Brihat Bhagavatamrita. First canto, what do we find? First canto of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Nard takes us on a tour to find which devotees have the highest mercy, and it's the gopis. So after that, what does Uttara say to Parikshit Maharaj? He says, well, where's that going to take place? It doesn't take place in Vaikuntha. We know about Vaikuntha. There's information about Vaikuntha. So this is how secret is Golok. I mean, we talk about it, as if it's common knowledge, but it's not. So she asks, where can that, therefore the whole second canto of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, what's it called? Golok Mahatmya, the place, highest ideal of love. Now, where's the place that it could manifest? And then we're taken to the glories of Goloka, right? So Brahma, he's got four heads. He figured this out now, right? His enlightenment has arisen out of his bewilderment. Vimohana. Four heads, not enough to figure, not a suitable vehicle for taking us there. He got a grace from Krishna, who just bewildered him by showing him full measure of Aishwarya, the full measure of Madhurya. His head spin. And so now he respectfully says, Namudjite bra bachase taridambaraya. Gunjavat hangsa paripichala sanmukaya. Banya sraje kavalavet visama venu. Laksma srijay mrukade. Vasupankajaya. This is the beginning of the Brahma Stuti, the Brahma's prayers, filled with Gaudiya Siddhanta, right? And this is a very useful prayer. This is one of the beautiful, let's say, of three descriptions of Krishna's form in the Bhagavatam that have been highlighted. Different sadhus. It begins with just an element of reverence. Namudya, namudyate, pranam to you. And then he speaks about Krishna, describes him in a way that differentiates Krishna from Narayan. And he talks about a form of Krishna whose interaction with his devotees is characterized in Sakyabhav by absence of respect. The bedrock or pradhan of the fundamental characteristic of Sakyabhav is absence of reverence, even where it seems like it should be. There's a place for it. It means abhayam, fearless, no fear, no fear. Same idea, no fear of God. This is Sakyaras. My Guru Maharaj was named Abhay, Pradhanaravinda. So arriving at the lotus feet of Krishna in Sakyaras, you have fearlessness. This is its characteristic. This is the equality and so forth. So what's happening here is this Brahma is transitioning. He's transitioning from what's called Adhikritya-das. Adhikritya-das is an empowerment. Adhikritya means like appointed. So there are powerful features of nature in the macrocosm that we are dependent upon in order to function. For sun, for eyes to see, we need sun. To speak, we need air, and so forth. So these are empowered positions, and they can be attained by jivas. But the positions themselves are a kind of dasya bhakti. Swami explained this in Bhakti Rasa. There's half a dozen or so types of dasya rasa. This is one on the lower end. The Brahma's got this adhikritya das, ego, and now he's in this period, he's transitioning from that into Sakyabhav. So we don't have the adhikritya das, but we got, Purushabhav. Purushabhav. We need to transition from Purushabhav into Sakyabhav or Madhuyabhav and so forth, right? So the transitioning stage will involve some measure of reverence, right? Some measure of reverence. There was a beautiful way in which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur reasoned about this. When the Bagh Bazar Math was built, which was a big temple in Calcutta, rather than in the Dham, he left the Dham, even against the advice of Guru Kishore, but under the influence of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, built a temple in Calcutta, and the devotees were begging, and sannyasis begging, and getting lots of money and throwing it at the temple, build this marble temple. This was a long time ago. A marble temple, it was like a big thing. When the deities were taken from the rented house into the marble temple, Bagh Bazar Math, then he composed a song, Bhaktisiddhanta, that the devotees sang as they took the deity. And one of the verses from there, it really captures the whole Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's understanding of the Rag Marg in terms of its pursuance. Pujala Raga Patam Gaura Bambi Matala Harijan Kirtana Rambi. Pujapat Sri Ramakrishna carved this over the altar in his temple. This was guiding light for us. Pujala Raga Patam Gaura Bambi Matala Harijan Kirtana. His idea was this, that this is in essence what this Bengali verse is saying, we will worship with reverence, not Krishna, but the Ragatmikas, these Gopas, these Gopikas. Itam satam brahmasukhanurutya dasyam gatanam paranam. Mayashritena naradadikeshu sakam bijavu krita punya punja. What is their position? So extraordinary. We will have reverence for that high love, that Rag Marg. And then so we'll speak about it everywhere. And in doing so, we'll have to speak 80% of what it's not. 20% of what it is, because it's such a high ideal. We won't take it cheaply. and in this way, that's Rup Shakti. It's benevolent in its nature. You'll be inclined towards us. Oh, you have regard for us. We're the other half of the whole picture. You can't have Krishna without Radha. You can't have Yashoda Nandan without Yashoda, right? You can't have the friend of Subal without Subal. This is a Chintuveda Bed. The object of love and the love, they're one and different at the same time. So we'll worship, venerate the object of love. And it will be then disposed to share itself with us. And then we will cross over, we will cross over any sense of reverence and enter into. So Brahma is doing this. This is a nice verse for what's called mantra mayi upasana. You take a mantra, verse, that describes a certain still picture in the movie of Krishna Lila, and you meditate on the verse. When you meditate deeply on the verse, it will start to move. It will start to move. The Lila is moving. This is Varasiki in the heart. And the movie will start to play. So here is a verse for nice verse for meditating, and it affords us an idea of the transition that we have to make from, in this case, Purusha Bhav to, here he's transitioning into Sakya Bhava, as you like, or as it arises in you. He says, Namudite Bra, so some respect, but then he starts to describe a form of Krishna that is really worshipped without that respect, right? And he distinguishes him in this way from Narayan. Namudite Bra Vapuse Paridambaraya. He says that you have the color of like the rain cloud, which in the course in the hot season, summer season of India, this is when the rain cloud comes and it's pregnant with water and so forth, just to see it as a relief, cooling in a shower of snow, right? Of course, as an aside, you might know the clouds in Braj, Vrindavan, and Leela are thought to be in Sakyaras, because rain clouds, because they have the same color of Krishna. They're like him. They're not different from him. This is how the gopis think. Oh, those clouds, they're all friends of Krishna. And like the cowherd friends, they remind us of him. You see, this relationship between Sakyaras and Madhurya Rasa is also very intimate. It's a very beautiful thing. These are the only two rasas that are compatible in Braj. Compatible means they nourish one another, rather than causing one another to one Mukhya Rasa that's incompatible, mixing with another, will cause one of them to contract. After all, this is a romantic comedy of adolescence. That's what it is. All the boys, have sisters. Krishna's in love with all of them. Everybody knows everybody. Krishna goes to the forest on the pretext of herding cows and being dharmic, but his mother and father are so proud of him. Oh, after they get over the shock that their son will be gone all day, there's a transition that they go through. Krishna's uncles will help. He wants to be a cowherd. Nanda Maharaj can't hear of that. What to speak of Yashoda? People say, your father has so many servants and assistants. Yes, you may be a son of a cowherd, but you don't have to be a cowherd. You just stay home. In that forest, it's deep and dark and so forth. Nanda's uncles, they become prominent at this time because Krishna wants to be a cowherd boy and he can't talk about it with his father. With his uncles, who are very happy now to have his company, they can talk with him. And then when Nanda comes, they'll become quiet. What were you talking about? One of the younger brother, like Sunanda, says, Nanda, here's the thing. You're older now, and what you do really for your life as a parent, father, to be complete, you want to see your son take over the business and give it new energies. What this will mean for you is start to work on him on Krishna's behalf, so that he becomes, his head starts to turn on it. Yeah, that sounds right. That's my son. Yeah, he should take over the business, and we'll be so proud of him. So then he's in a position now, Nanda Maharaj, to convince Yashoda that we have to let this happen. On the pretext, anyway, as I said, on the premise of herding cows, Krishna really wants to just go play with his friends. There's not much herding to do. Cows are fairly attached to Krishna. He just has to nod his head or move his eyebrows, call their name, and so forth. But on the pretext of playing with his friends, he's in the forest to meet with the gopis, right? They're serving in this way, they're assisting in this way. Balaram's not directly involved in the gopis, in Gopi Bhav, but indirectly he's very much involved, leading the cowherd boys out to herd. And in midday, when Krishna wants to sneak off with a couple of Narma Sakas, whose Sakya Bhav is mixed with Madhurya, and meet with the gopis, Balaram will take care of the rest of the gopis. They all come with me. That's why Krishna glorifies Balaram at the beginning of the Pagonda Leela in the 15th chapter of the 10th canto. This is tribute to Balaram. Glorifying him in Hasyarasa. Then all the boys will attach themselves to Balaram. Krishna says, excuse me for a minute, I'm just going to go check out the forest. And they're so consumed then, these cowherd boys, by love of Balaram and the sport and so forth that takes place, that when Krishna's gone for several hours, when he comes back, they look at the sun and say, hey, you were gone for a long time. The sun's all the way, it's just about to set. You've been gone for a long time. Where were you? Oh, then you'll have to make up excuses where he was and so forth. And that's a nice story. So here Brahma is describing him. He says that you're like a cloud. Your complexion is like a cloud. This color sham, of course, is the color of romantic love. All the colors in Indian aesthetics, there's an emotion identified with them. So sham is the color of romantic love. Balaram is whitish, and this is the color of hasya. He presides over the Hasyaras, which is the best friend of Sakyaras. They are very compatible. It's a secondary ras, but they are best friends. So, Namudite Bra, Vapuse, his body his complexion is like a dark cloud, and Tadirambaraya, a dark cloud in which lightning, silver electric lightning is flashing. This is his dress. It's a golden color, like the color of Radhika's complexion. Right? He says that. And, well, okay, Narayan looks like that too. So it sounds like he's offering obeisance to Krishna, who is the avatar of Narayan. He looks like Narayan. But then he goes on and he wants to differentiate. I've understood something new here, he says. Gunjavatamsana, Paripitula Sanmukhaya. And you are decorated not with emeralds and gold and ornaments that in and of themselves are beautiful, stunning, opulent, and so forth, but with gunja berries that you can just pick up from the forest bush and string and make an earring out of them. Gunja, and you have a crown, but it's just peacock feather that's scattered on the ground. And because you're wearing one, all your friends are wearing one too. They also, well, he's doing, we'll do it also. Not only that, but they're putting the peacock on Krishna, is implied here. These ornaments that he has, these sakas are decorating him in the forest. And they're praying, they are expressions of their praying. And he's seeing that these ordinary items, which would not be very attractive even, would speak of worshipful, because they're actually expressions of the praying of the boys who are decorating him. He's drawn into this type of love that they have that exceeds in intimacy and so forth, all of Vaikuntha. He's distinguishing him from Narayan. Vasanmukhaya, your face is so radiant. So he has a flower garland made from, not parijata flowers from heaven, but just like dandelions and some weeds. Turn them into flowers, make a bouquet out of them. Make a bouquet out of weeds and put them in Krishna's hand and become the most beautiful vase that you could bouquet that you could possibly encounter, given the spirit with which it's given and so forth, and his acceptance of it. And then Kavala Detra, Vishana, Venu, so here's some of these deepeners for Sakirasa. He's got a stick for herding cows and a horn under his left arm, and his Venu is the first place he's described like this with his Venu. This comes in Sakirasa, part of his paraphernalia. Lakshma Sridhe Mirupade Pasupam. In Kabbalah. And he has in his hand some yogurt, rice, simple offering, and so forth. Lakshma Sridhe Mirupade Pasupam Kajai. So there's characteristics. Soft feet, Mirupade. His feet, he's too small now for his feet to make footprints. His foot is not developed enough that all those auspicious lines are manifest. He doesn't weigh enough to make footprints. That will come in his Poganda Lila. When he enters into boyhood, this will be a characteristic. Here Brahma has described him. Praise unto you, most venerable one, O son of the cowherd, Nanda, Pashupangajaya. Your body resembles a rain cloud wrapped in a garment of lightning. Your face is resplendent, framed as it is with gunjaberry earrings and a crown of peacock's tail feathers. You're beautifully set apart from others by this ornamentation, as well as by your forest flower garland, horn, flute, and herding stick, as you stand before me on your tender feet with a morsel of food in your hand. Brahmaji. This is the beginning of this prayer. It's a very nice prayer, very beautiful description of Krishna. And what is the time?
5:20.
What time did we start?
4.
Oh, we've talked for a long time then. Next verse is comes. I'll go a little bit into it. Comes from we skip to the 21st chapter of the Bhagavatam. Skipping over the Purana Lila because I'm going to lecture on that next month in the United States during the Kartik month. But in the 21st chapter is preceded, of course, by the 20th chapter. Wouldn't have known, but need good association for that. But that chapter is describing the monsoon and the autumn season. Ritu, the season. Ritu describes from the Sanskrit Rita, it means like the order and course of things. So it indicates that life has a meaning, there's a dharma, life has a purpose, and so forth. The seasons move from spring to summer to fall. There's 6 of them, of course, in India, right? 6 seasons. With each season, there are different rituals then, and there's the ritu means the time also for the astrologically calculated time that's appropriate for making the sacrifice and so forth. So this is how the humans then communicate with nature through ritual. And the scripture has given us the times and the way according to the particular season and so on and so forth. This is how we, as I've said before, approach nature with love and gratitude. With the expectation that if you love someone, they'll share all their secrets with you. So the secrets of nature will be revealed, and the biggest secret is that she has a soul, and it's us, right? And we turn from Dharma Jignasa to Brahma Jignasa. This is the course. Of course, if you get good association, you can skip over both and engage in Rasa Jignasa. But as you do, to do so appropriately and apply yourself in pursuit of that high ideal, we should look and see the fruit or the results of being morally upright and dharmic are also coming in you. The knowledge of the self experience is coming in you. These will come before rasa comes. So you know where to go and where you are and have to proceed. Yes, you can forego the Dharma Jignasu, you can forego the Brahma Jignasu and pursue rasa Jignasu, but if you do it properly, good association. This is the results you look for. Don't look for bhakti rasa. Tomorrow, Brahma got initiated, took him half a life to even figure out what raga bhakti was. With good association, second time he met his guru, Krishna, he understood. Then the other half of his life he spent. Brahma. It's said that he went to Navadvip, Bhakti Vinod says, after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, performed some penance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared before him. He said, you can enter into the life of a coward boy. Spend the next balance of your life, practice, and then I will perform my Leela here, and you will come as Haridas. And you will be the acharya of the name. He offended the form of Krishna, Brahma, but the name stayed with him. This is the virtue of Nam. The two are same, the name is more merciful. And removed his whole prabdha karma. He came from an outcast, right? He had bad karma, birth by Hindu standards. Prabdha karma cannot be removed by jnana, but by bhakti, by nam, it was removed. That's the significance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing with his body, Haridas Thakur at the end, digging his samadhi for him and saying, anybody who worships, comes to this place and worships, then their life will become perfect. The efficacy of bhakti, this should not be underestimated. You may say, well, Maharaj, my prarabdha karma is that so-and-so is my mother and so-and-so is my father. So how is that going to change by chanting? Therefore, I don't believe that prarabdha karma, which is the manifest karma, it's already bearing fruit, can be eradicated, just needs to play itself out. But no, the scripture says this. Third canto of Bhagavatam, powerful verses there, right? Sadyopi savanaya, sadyopi sadya savanaya kalpate, uttapamste, bhagavan darshana, yad shravana, kirtana, so forth. By hearing, by yanam ashdeya, shravananu kirtana, by nam, then one immediately becomes qualified to perform the Vedic sacrifices. What to speak of by seeing Krishna face to face. That's the idea. So that means, typically within the Varnashram system, if you're born in a Sudra family, let's say, for example, then you don't have the karma to serve the society with the Brahminical duties. You have to have a Brahminical disposition, body, birth, and so forth. But by Nam, no. This prarabdha karma can be removed, the verses say. So the example is there in Haridas. Sakya Bhakta, if you will, in Gaur Leela, significant one for that matter. So in the seasons, we were talking seasons, going round and round, turn. In every, what is it? In everything, there is a what? In everything, there is a reason. Turn. In everything, turn. And a reason, every purpose under heaven, something like that. Famous song. There is a reason, in that season. For every purpose under heaven. So there's a purpose under heaven, right? We realize this is a way to communicate with nature. It's the outer world. It's what's out there. Approach her with gratitude, with love. She'll reveal her secrets. We realize that the fruits of nature are temporary. We should turn within, right? Find the self. But as I was saying, by sadhusanga, we get a shortcut, a good sadhusanga, Brahma Jignasu, but go about it in the right way, right? So this chapter, anyway, preceding 21st chapter, which is the Venu Gita, the gopis are speaking about the virtues of Krishna. flute, then it's beautiful descriptions there. Prabhupada published a book just about that chapter, poetic renderings of the metaphorical descriptions of the autumn and the monsoon seasons. Jiva Goswami says that the purpose of these chapters is that they serve as an udipana for the ananda in the leelas that will now be played out in this case in the autumn season. So they're just setting the stage for the blissful pastimes and preparing the reader, if you will. Because in this autumn season, what does it begin? Ashwin, Sarad. What pastimes will take? Oh, so many. And of all of them, the Maharas. Now it's just past maybe 3 days before I came. The Ras Purnim, right? The harvest moon. Harvest moon in all cultures has romantic overtones. Moon is very large, and it rises. The full moon, full harvest moon, just as the sun sets. So in the field where the harvesting is going on, it extends the hours for harvesting by the power of the moonlight, maybe an extra hour or something like that to collect the harvest. It's a time of abundance, right? And it's festive, isn't it? Festive. And in this, in this season, we find the pinnacle of Krishna's own festive life, with the consummation of his romantic life that's been building up through the previous chapters, right? Rasa Leela. And then it goes in 5 chapters, and everything after that is only reflecting back on it, its virtues, and the virtues of Braj, the whole material Leela, the Dwarka Leela, and so forth. So this verse comes here. It's worth noting, of course, that the Hindus, like other ancient people in ancient times, they looked at the world in a cyclical sense. Time was cyclical. But the Hindus' basis of this idea was not simply well, it looks like the seasons are going round and round, right? Looks like the sun goes round, so time must go round. But the Hindus' idea was much more developed. They based their sense that time was cyclical on the idea that there's a fixed point in nature, and it's us. The world is moving around the Atma, as Krishna says in Gita, right? Apareya mitastanyam prakriti midime jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dayate. The Shakti is animating the world, making it go round, turning the whole thing on. Right? And that Atma is orbiting around the Paramatma. The Paramatma is orbiting around Krishna, the avatars of Krishna, in a sense, they're orbiting. And of course, Krishna's orbiting around Radha. So their heads are spinning, with this kind of idea. When the Copernican revolution came to India, some of the traditionalists who were looking at the world from a Puranic cosmological, that vantage point, argued with them. Some gave in to some extent, and so forth and so on. But the Goswamis in Vrindavan at that time, who would have been successors of the 6 Goswamis, they didn't pay any attention to it. They were too busy with the idea, like I said, that he who is the most worshipable object is worshiping. Prabhupada used to say, Krishna is the most, God, all religions say that God is the most worshipable object, and we are teaching what is the worshipable object of God. Radhe. So this is a very esoteric idea, but that said, the linear time is a new idea. Linear time is a new idea, and it's not very pretty. If you draw a line, let's draw a line. Now draw a circle. The circle, you get some completion. some wholeness. A line is just like, that's the modern world. And if you want to define a dot on a line, well, you can't, because you can only define a thing by in relation to something else. But if you define it by relating to the dot that's next to it, then you got the next one, and then you have this infinite ingress. So this is a kind of a madness. You know, you get the question, which comes first, the seed or the tree? Well, if it's linear, you can't answer the question. If it's circular, you can answer the question. Both. Both. And it's complete, it's beautiful. In other words, with a circle, we find purpose. Find purpose. With a line, I don't. And you take Euclidean, like geometry and so forth. There are no lines in nature. There are no straight lines in nature. Gravity's bending things. So there are only abstract lines that have a pragmatic result. But they're not real in the real sense. And of course, cyclical time has its place in modern society, both in Newtonian physics. There may be room for that in quantum physics, relativity, and so forth. Now there are theories of cyclical universe, expanding and contracting, and so forth. So these are not like primitive ideas, is what I want to say. Any more than worshiping a stone of Govardhan as some form of animism. It's super animism, if you will. It will make your hair stand on end, so keep you up at night. So this beautiful introduction, this 20th chapter, talking about nature, bringing us close to nature of Vrindavan, which of course is alokik. So we may learn something from nature in general, as I'm saying, through Varnashram, by interacting with it with gratitude, communicating with ritual, and so on and so forth. But here, of course, we're talking about the Vrindavan forests, Braj forests. And they are alokika, means they're not ordinary, they're not material. Therefore, so many beautiful examples of there. You can find a tree with a branch, and on the branch, there'll be a leaf, there'll be a blossom, there'll be a flower, and there'll be a fruit, all on the same branch, all at the same time. One should cancel out the other, right? The blossom, maybe the flower will come, it'll fall, the blossom will come, and the fruit. Or the best of any season can appear in any season for the pleasure of Krishna. All this is orchestrated by the queen of the forest, right? Vrindadevi. So the Braj forest, a very special place. We should learn to revere that. Rupa Goswami in his Utkalika Balari, it's a very nice book where he petitions different residents of Braj in the mood of a sadhaka, that he might get a blessing from them to attain the service of Radha and Govinda. So this one comes to mind. He says, Chitram Palatu, he says, Vrinda Devi, you are the queen of the forest. All of the movements of the forest of Braj are under your jurisdiction. You can make the best of any season appear in any season, or all the best of all the seasons in one season. You can make fruits blossom, trees fruit out of season, all these things. I'm like a tree with a wish. I'm a simple, small tree, something like that. My sadhana, my practice, my worship is very limited. But I want the chipram, that suddenly, quickly, I'll attain the fruit of praying. You can do that in the forest. We see that. Do that to me. You have the power. Just like you can make a fruit suddenly appear in a tree that was too immature to bear fruit. Bear fruit. Bless me in that way. This is how to pray. This is sadhana. With some longing. And how appropriate the longing is. Petitioning everyone in Braj. He knows the power of all of the forests, the rivers, the mountains, all the apparently inanimate things, the persons, and so on and so forth, right? So you come to the verse at any rate. Um, this is the second verse. Barhapidham Natubharatapu Karnayo Karnikaram Vidbrad Vishakanaka Kapisam Vaijayantam Jamalam Randran Venur Adhara Suparat Rayan Popa Vindaya Vindaranyam Satada Ramanam Pavishad Gita. Nice verse. Again, it's just describing Krishna beautifully. Says that he's got a peacock feather, crowned with a peacock feather, adorned with a karnika flower behind his ear, wrapped in a reddish gold ornament, and garlanded with a wreath of 5 different forest flowers stretching down to his knees. Krishna, his form, that of the best of dancers, fills the holes of his flute, the nectar of his lips, and enters into the forest of Vrindavan, surrounded by his cowherd friends, singing his praise, leaving a path to follow. His footprints beautify the forest. This is a description of Krishna at the beginning of his Kishore Leela. It's spoken by Sukadeva Goswami at the onset of the chapter of the Venu Gita, where the gopis assemble and they hear the flute of Krishna and they're speaking. The images are coming to their mind, appearing in their heart, and they're sharing them with one another in private. They can't be heard talking about such right, in public. And so this is his basic description of what they're seeing, and you can see that Krishna is described here, accompanied by his friends who are singing his praise. These are Narmasakas who are singing songs about Krishna and his love for Radha in a way that only Krishna and Radha could understand what they're talking about. Not even the other boys. Right? These kind of songs. Very beautiful picture. A little further in the same text, maybe a couple verses down, gopis speak themselves and they say, this vision of Krishna and Balaram and his friends entering into the forest, that this is the perfection of the eyes. One devotee said to me, if I'm pursuing Madhurya Ras, how can I worship Krishna and Balaram? Well, if Krishna and Balaram appear before you and you don't think they're worshipable, maybe you should read the Venu Gita. Radharani, Gopikas are saying, this is the perfection of the eyes to see them. Right? Of course, it will be looked at from different angles of vision. The Gopas will say, just say, even the Gopis are saying this is the best. Enter the forest with Krishna, so forth. But anyway, this is a very nice verse. We don't have time to go into let's speak of the third verse. So we do have another session tomorrow. Maybe we can get to that. I don't want to take up too much time. Any questions tonight?
Oh, I didn't quite catch what these verses are, where they are.
Oh, well, there are 3 verses from the Bhagavatam. Some sadhus have said these 3 verses are the 3 verses that best describe the beauty of Krishna's form. One is appearing at the beginning of the 14th chapter, Brahma's first prayer. This one is becoming as the 5th verse of the 21st chapter of Venu Gita. The gopis are speaking about the effects of Krishna's flute upon them. And the last one comes in the 23rd chapter, which is the chapter describing the wives of the Brahmins and how Krishna and his friends, Krishna, through the help of his friends, has a union with the Yognik Brahmanis, and they describe it. You want to hear that verse? I'll just read the verse for you. Okay, it's my favorite. It's a beautiful chapter, one of my favorite chapters of the Bhagavad. Just, I don't have it here. Somehow it didn't get concluded, so we have to save it for tomorrow. Maybe we'll tell a little bit about that. Lena. So, anything? Question? Yes.
No.
Well, well, let me ask you this. You have a better candidate? A good argument, yeah. Yeah. Well, are you convinced that God exists? Okay, then probably the principal way in which we've come to know about God is through persons who have experienced God, right? So they've shared their experience, therefore he's a topic. And therefore I say, different people have spoken about God who have experienced him. And on the power of their love of God, which is compelling because of the example that they set, harnessing their human passions and so on and so forth, being the kind of people that they are, which is as example speaks louder than precept. On the basis of that, you're convinced of his God. So that different persons in different traditions have reported about who God is, right? You can, and I think that that those traditions that speak about God that are also ego-effacing, and that they involve the idea that if you are to see God and know God, that you have to see through different eyes than these material eyes, and material selfish identity that we call ourself right now, the conventional self, narrow-mindedness that it is. Even the broadest minded of us, philanthropically speaking, and so forth. It's all a conventional ego. I'm British, or I'm American, or Indian woman, and so forth. That has to be dissolved. I think that's a good argument, right? Now, so now you look at these major traditions. You've got the Jesus. You've got the let's say you got Muhammad for Sufis. You've got different sadhus for different traditions. In India, you've got Shankar, you've got the Vaishnava tradition, you've got Ramanuja, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then you got the Buddha, right? Okay. And then, you got maybe the Jewish tradition and the Torah. Okay. We're running out here. There are not a lot of them. So it's not really a lot to choose from. I'm talking about traditions that have been around for a long, long time, that are founded by people who obviously had a very powerful effect on the world, still going on for thousands of years. That's pretty powerful. These people. That's why they make a compelling argument. So, and if you look at it beyond the surface of religious application of their teachings, which tends to be superficial, they themselves were not absorbed in a social religious orientation. They were absorbed in a mystical, experiential relationship with the truth, which is at the heart of all these traditions. And out of the heart of the tradition comes a body of members and so on and so forth that identify with it to some extent. Like we all want to find when we're young, what the meaning of life is. And then we find some tradition, we think that's got all the answers. Everybody's, so many different groups that have the answers. One works with you psychologically. Now you know the answers. So now you go on with your life. You're supposed to take the answers and apply them, not go on with your life. Yeah. We tend to take them on in a religious way. That's my religion. Speak about it, in certain times. I think about it here and there. I go on Sunday or whatever may be the case, but I go on with my life. I found out what the purpose of life. Now I can regurgitate it and speak it to somebody else. I can hear it come out of my own mouth, but I'm not using it to change my life and make my life perfect. This is then the religious orientation, and then these people, they tend to having drifted as far as they have from the center. They don't understand it for what it is. Then they argue with other people over the different rituals or dress and so forth. And, this is big problem. And then people say, you see, religions cause more wars than anything, you know. So, I mean, you're just missing the whole point. It's a subtle thing. So, right, let's go to the saints, sadhus, the Catholic saints, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's look at the saints. Well, among saints, one thing I'll say, I mean, that's, well, of course, yes, Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, there's no saint in the world, cross-culturally, that is more the embodiment of ecstasy than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is just objective fact. And the reports about his ecstasy are, you know, numerous from different authors over the course of, you know, a century. And Rupa Goswami has taken that ecstasy and located it on the scriptural map, and explained it to us and so forth. So this is very extraordinary, very uncommon. The Buddha just sat down. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing in ecstasy. So he's very compelling. If we want to understand Krishna, well, what of course did Bhaktivinoda Thakur take? He had the same question that you had, Bhaktivinoda. That's a fact. But when he turned to Chaitanya Charitamrita, then you could understand Krishna must be the Supreme Personality of God, because nobody has ever done, no other form or idea of God has ever done what's been done to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What's happened to him. The kind of, there's a famous, I've quoted him in one of my books, Christian theologian, that says there's no one in all the history of the religious world that more exemplifies an ecstasy of love of God than the mystic Chaitanya, banks of the ocean in Puri. He did this, falling over and chanting the name and so on and so forth. It's very extraordinary. So Bhaktivinoda, in short, realized that if his object of love is doing this to him, which exceeds the measure of any other expression of love of God, as good as that other expression is, or as complete as it is, well, they're different faces of God, and so they're going to do different things to you, right? He could reason this must be the most fullest form of God. So he identified Yeah, but you could chant Jesus maybe all day.
Yeah, yeah.
You get a different taste. But really the point, really to be honest with you, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the point is that you have to reach a point where it doesn't matter. Hmm? You like Krishna. I mean, do you like him or not? I mean, he's very likable. He's good. He's a beautiful Leela. What does it matter? What if he's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead and somebody else? What if Narayana is? I was given the reasoning why that won't work, but um, what if there's a backyard to Vaikuntha where Krishna has his play? Okay, it goes on there. Okay, so what you tell me? Do you like Narayan more than Krishna? I mean, you tell me. Can you tell me any of Narayan's pastimes, by the way? Yeah, okay, well, that's the point. Not very charming. Yeah, well, you could get stuck in that too. You could get stuck. You could get stuck in thinking, I don't know where to commit myself. That's called a non-committed commitment, non-committal commitment. And you don't get any taste from that. I'm sorry. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, again, what you said, what if it's not the Supreme? Is it divine at all? What do you think? I mean, is there a chance? I mean, could it possibly be? I can tell you by my experience, it certainly is. And we have a long history of saints. Look what they've written and stuff. All these things are not just coming out of their head; they're coming out of samadhi. What they've written, how. So this we have the thing. We have Cambridge and we have Oxford in the United States. We have Harvard and Yale. These are called Ivy League schools. What is the implication of that? They're so old. They've been around for so long. They have such credibility that ivory is growing up the walls. That means they're not like Phoenix University online. Get your degree here, and pay later if you get a job. It's not like that. So this Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Ramanuja Vaishnavism, Advaita. These are like Ivy League school. These have been around forever. The tradition behind them is considerable. The evidence is overwhelming. Tradition of saintly persons, a body of scriptural canon of literary legacy that's just extraordinary. All the books that have been written about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about Radha and Krishna, and that this tradition is having an impact on modern people in the Western world, and even in academia and so forth. This is very, you don't really probably are not aware of the subtle ways in which Gaudiya Vaishnavism continues to extend its influence in the world today, and Vaishnavism in general, and Indian thought in general. Look at modern science, which is basically, in modern philosophy, is basically materialism, physicalism, naturalism. And whereas in terms of trying to understand consciousness and reduce it to the brain matter, they're coming up short for good reason. And then if there's anywhere that they've looked outside of their own tradition and methodology to understand consciousness, it's India. That's where it is. That's where they look. The Hinduism. Do you believe in a soul? Well, if somebody asked me, I would say, wrong question. Ask me this. I'll ask you, do you believe in consciousness? Well, what do you mean? Of course. So now we have to define what is consciousness. Right? Is it a neuron firing in the brain? Well, I don't think so. Those theories are really like running out of steam. So there are all kind of fancy ways to try to talk about it, but people are, the paradigm is just the beginning of shifting. People are dropping out of that reductive materialism. Educated people in the field and looking at it another way. Like, what about idealism instead of the opposite of materialism? What about reducing matter to consciousness? Maybe that makes more sense. So this is going on. This is happening. So you got to keep up to speed with that. So you believe in soul, you believe the consciousness is not matter. So you believe in that there's transcendence, that there's a supernatural. You're just not sure which one's which. It doesn't matter. If there are different faces of God, you ask me which one is supreme. What does it matter? Pick the one you like. Are none of them supreme? Or one of them has to be? Or is it maybe none of them are? Well, if maybe none of them are, then why do you believe in the soul in the first place? In consciousness, is there a supernatural or not? There is a supernatural, and you're a spark of consciousness, and there has to be the fire. So, okay, but different people have talked about it in different ways. Which you want? It doesn't matter. Pick whichever one. Plenty of people don't pick Krishna. They pick Narayan, and what do we say? Om Narayan. We praise them. Go for it. Jayo. No problem. You want to worship Jesus? You want to go to ISKCON or Gaudiya Math or this Math or that Math? Go be a Buddhist. If they like it, go for it. No problem. So they're all, so it doesn't matter when it's supreme or not. And the whole argument that Krishna is supreme is a relative argument anyway. Because it's an objective argument when the reality is ultimately a subjective determination. Whatever somebody in Vaikuntha thinks Narayan is perfect, and they're right. They think he's the best, and they're right. They're not wrong. Right? God is accepting service from them in that way. And I feel perfect in that. So it doesn't really matter. You got to pick one. If you don't want to pick any of them, then just pick yourself. Soul is God too. How about that? What is the one thing in this world that most resembles God? It's you, the Atma, the spark of consciousness. So pursue the self. Well, now, what are the methods, right? Become a Jnani if you want,
I find that to think that I am God very disappointing.
Well, that's because you're also thinking of the illusion of yourself. If you knew what yourself was as an Atma, you'd think there's a likeness between me and God, even as much as there's a difference. And Krishna's friends, they think, they're better than him sometimes. It all depends. Anyway, I appreciate your inquiries, but there's you have some sort of past become to doubt. Now you have to understand where doubt becomes rational, or where doubt becomes emotional and therefore irrational. You don't want to let your emotions override your reason, because we're supposed to be reasonable animals. With our reason, we're supposed to harness our emotions. There's a place for them and so forth, but there's a place for reason. So in the face of all kinds of reasoning, you can go, yeah, I agree. And then tomorrow I come back and ask me the same question. Your emotions have got the best of you. And so you're troubled by that. That's just a fact of your life. It doesn't make you a bad person or anything like that. But I empathize with you. And I'm telling you that your problem that you're having is emotional. It's not rational. That may be hard to take, but it is. And it can be solved by good association. I mean, one of my godbrothers, he was a sannyasi. He passed away. His name was Vishnu Jan Maharaj. He's a big kirtanier, and he used to have a bus, and he had deities on the bus, and he would travel around and go to the temples. On Sunday, he'd come to the temple, and then the temple would have some young men or women who were maybe thinking of joining, and so forth. So then they would, after the lecture, they'd have him come and sit with Maharaj, and he'd talk to them, right? And one of the things he would say, how'd you like the prasadam? He said, oh, it was great. Oh, good. Yeah. How'd you like the other devotees? Oh, they're really nice. Oh, that's great. Yeah. How'd you like the class, the philosophy? Yeah, it was really good. He said, then, well, why don't you join us? Maybe it's you, not me. Maybe you're the problem, not us. That's what I'm saying. So there's a point worth making, yes. Yeah. How do you get out of your own way? but you're not making too much progress. You what? Anyway, you want to know how to get out of your own way. Yeah. Well, to be frank with you, the best thing that you can do in your life and for your progress is to afford yourself really good sadhu sangha, because you can chant all year long and spend 3 days in good company, and the 3 days will do more for you than the whole year of chanting, reading, and so forth, because just where you are in your trajectory at this time. Sadhu Sangha is the birth of bhakti in our life, and it's watering of seed, if you will, and it from beginning to end. Narottam Thakur could be more perfect than him, and he's praying for Sadhu Sangha. What is this song? Narottam Thakur. Anyway. Ye anilo premodham karuna pracha. So that's, I mean, okay, great. Word. Then you say, well, I don't live near any sadhus. Right? Well, I hate to tell you, but this is about change. You have to change your life here. I say, move then. Move. How could I move? Well, if something else was a crisis in your life, you would. Let's say you fell in love with a girl from France. Right? Sounds good. And she was wealthy, and and it was perfect and so forth. Well, you figure out how to move, right? So I'm being a little crude, but yeah. So where do you get faith? Where do you get desire in the first place? It's a contagious kind of a thing. So you associate with people that are excited about it, so forth, and speak about it in ways that you haven't heard and thought about, and so that's very powerful. It's contagious. Therefore, sadhu sangha, and you can create sangha amongst yourselves and so forth, which I'm sure you do, and that's valuable. There may be ways to get sadhu sangha through like the internet too, and invite sadhus here. You all seem to have a good samskar for inviting sadhus without any sectarian concern. That's very good. So you're fertile ground for making progress. I would say band together, all of you, try to get sadhus to come here to Brighton and spend time with them. That is the best thing that you can do. And also you can listen to recorded lectures and so forth. Find a sadhu you like, listen to her lectures. This is what I would recommend. There must have been a time in your life where you're hearing from some sadhu and you were being electrified and excited to get going. So you want to keep that in your life, keep that constantly in your life. I mean, it's very apparent to me that I have many God brothers and God sisters in the absence of problems. It's very apparent to me they really needed good association. They needed a Siksha Guru. They needed, many of them still need that. But some of them have developed a samskar for not seeking sadhu sangha. That's the problem. Better to err on the side of seeking sadhu sangha than not. I'm sorry, yes. Yeah. What it means is that Krishna, he said that previously I said, first become a person if you want to understand Krishna as a person. So what did I mean by that? What I mean by that is Krishna is now a theological person to you. You don't talk to him. He doesn't talk to you. You don't see him. You don't hold his hand and walk down the street like you might with a friend in India. Right? With Krishna? You were walking with him this morning? Yeah, you believe. But I mean, actually standing next to Krishna, the person, talking with him and so forth, you're not doing that. You're a sadhaka, right? You believe that God is with you at all times and so forth. Yeah, he is. He is, right. But he's not there in his Braja Leela, right? Where he has intimate friends and so forth, which may be our ideal. Enter there, right? So he's a little abstract to us. He's a theological person. We know intellectually from philosophy that he's here, and so on and so forth. But to have the kind of interaction that you would have with him with an everyday person, then it requires that we transcend the limited sense of personality that we have now, that it's just a mental construct. When you come out of that, then the Atma gets a spiritual, its spiritual personality comes out. This is called Bhava Bhakti. In Bhava Bhakti. Then the fact that Krishna is a person is very clear, because it's not he's with me because I understand it, I believe it philosophically because I've been told. He's there. In the same, more than your wife is there. More than your sons are there. In that sense. So that's what I mean. You follow? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but I have my own translation.
Oh,
Yes, something else?
On the question of whether he ended up wonder why.
Well, I think that's an exaggeration to say that Shankar, in his end, decided that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of God in the way that you're thinking about Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. Yes, he sings in praise of Govinda. He aspired to live on the banks of the Jamuna and just hear the pastimes of Krishna, so forth. So you see, in Shankar's lineage, the reality of Krishna as an avatar is a prominent feature. In other words, he actually thought that Krishna was a historical figure who appeared in the world and did miraculous things, right? Okay. But his idea of, and he thought that Krishna was the fullest expression of Brahman in person. But the fullest expression of the Godhead in person is nonetheless, in Shankar's philosophy, a provisional manifestation of Brahman. He calls it Saguna Brahman. So when he has two tiers of Brahman that he created, Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman. So the Nirguna Brahman manifests as Saguna Brahman in this world, and you can take advantage of that manifestation to enter into the Nirguna. So Saguna is a provisional, in his philosophy, manifestation of God. So he can say Krishna is the Supreme Person, the full avatar, but number one, he still doesn't believe that the absolute in transcendence is personal. Neither does he believe that he is a person, not. He thinks not only is the body and the mind an illusion, the idea that I'm an individual Atma is also an illusion. And that's his philosophy. Now, you can find, like a follower of Shankar at the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was prominent. His name is Madhusudan Saraswati. He loved Krishna more than most devotees. Still, he thought he was a Saguna Brahman. But the things that he says about him are just like mind-boggling. Therefore, different Gaudiya commentators even cite him. And Vishnu and Madhusudan Saraswati, even he says this. But then you look and uncover his philosophy. So he looks at it. He says the same thing and means something very different at the same time. Shankaracharya, Vijay. We like him too, relatively speaking. What else? So now there'll be some prasad, right? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon. Forward Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Forward Bhaktivinoda.
So I'd just like to draw everyone's attention. We have a book table over there. So if you're inspired today, feel free to take a look. Many of Swami Tripurari's books are over there. There's a nice book actually related to many of the topics brought up today called Sacred Preface. So it might be one worth looking at. Yeah, for starting right at the back. Krishna.
Aye. Sit. I'll sit for a little bit. Yeah.